Great. So thank you so much for joining us for the 16th session of the WEPs Deep Dive series, Creating Employment for Women Living in Poverty. My name is Miwa Park, and I'm the WEPs coordinator at Women's Empowerment Principles Global Secretariat here at UN Women. So this session aims to highlight the role of private sector to reduce poverty through exploring how web signatories are leading the effort to reduce poverty in their local community through creating employment for women living in poverty. So we'll take a look at some cases from web signatories that are creating those opportunities internally in their company or externally in their supply chain in local community. We've also invited a special speaker who will share why it matters for companies to work on poverty alleviation. So please stay tuned and ask lots of questions. So we have a very packed agenda today. Let me go through those. First, we will hear some introductory remarks from Anna Fall. She's the head of the WEPs Global Secretariat at UN Women. Then I will introduce you to today's speaker. Then they'll present and we will head to the Q&A session. So I continue with my logistical reminders. As I mentioned earlier, we are offering AI-generated translation for today's webinar. So this is a reminder for you to turn it on if you'd like. And if you're unsure about how to do so, please let me know and I can share the steps in the chat. So next, you can share your questions to the panelists in the Q&A function at the bottom of the screen. You can do this throughout the webinar, and if you like to communicate with other participants, leave comments, please use the chat function. And also I wanted to remind you that this webinar is being recorded and then later will be uploaded to weps.org website to share with the general public and for those who couldn't make it today. So lastly, we will have a short evaluation survey that will pop up when you're leaving our webinar. So please take some time to answer those. We really do look at the result to improve our future sessions. So now to get us started, I'd like to invite Anna to deliver her opening remarks. So Anna, over to you.
Thank you so much, Miwa, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Welcome to this webinar. Thanks for joining us today for this important conversation on creating employment opportunities for women living in poverty. As web signatories, you're already part of a global movement of companies that understand this transformative power of gender equality, not just in the workplace, but in our communities, economies, and society at large. So this is the 11th Deep Dive series webinar that we are conducting as part of the Beijing Plus 30 cycle. So today we are focusing on the critical dimension of that mission, ensuring that women who face the greatest economic barriers are not left behind. We know that poverty is not gender neutral. Women often lack access to education, skills development, training, and therefore are more likely to work in the informal, low-paid, and insecure jobs. But we also know this. When women are at the base of the economic pyramid are empowered through decent work, the ripple effects benefit families, communities, and entire society. As the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has said, achieving gender equality and empowering women and girls is the unfinished business of our time and the greatest human rights challenge in our world. The challenge that he's referring to is about ensuring that women living in poverty are not just supported, but included, employed, and enabled to lead. So what we'll hear from our speakers today is not just about doing the right thing. It is about unlocking talent, resilience, innovation that too often go untapped. It is also about reimagining business models, value chains, and partnerships that are more inclusive and sustainable. So today's session is a space to share practical ideas, proven strategies, and concrete actions that companies, large and small, can take. Whether through inclusive hiring, gender-responsive procurement, or partnership with grassroots organizations, there's a role for every company in creating a pathway out of poverty for women. As we listen and learn and reflect together today, I invite you to think not only about what's needed, but also what's possible. Because in a world facing intersecting crisis, the private sector has never had a more powerful opportunity to be a force for equality and dignity. Thank you again for your commitment to the Women's Empowerment Principles and for being part of this journey and for joining us today. So Miwa, back to you to introduce our amazing speakers for today's webinar.
No, thank you so much, Anna. And that actually has reminded that we have a lot of speakers today. And just to let you know that our webinar may go 5 to 10 minutes over time, just to let the participants know. And this is to ensure you that you will have enough time to hear from our amazing speakers today, but also guarantee that you will have a chance to ask questions you may have to all of them. So with that said, I'd like to introduce you to today's panelists. First, we have a very special guest, Nim Deshpande, the Managing Director from Good Business Lab. So Nim leads the global team at Good Business Lab, which is a global innovation NGO that aims to improve the well-being of low-wage workers with a focus on gender equality and women's economic empowerment. GBL focuses on identifying persistent challenges faced by low-wage workers, designing worker-focused interventions, and then evaluating their impact on both workers and business outcomes. GBL aims to demonstrate how worker well-being can be a resource not just of worker resilience, but also for economic growth for companies. NIM draws nearly 2 decades of experience across private and public sector in strategy, design, and impact. Then we have two speakers from IBIS Rise. I will start with Kim. She's the head of impact from IBIS Rise, where she leads effort to ensure socially inclusive programming and track company impact. Prior to this, she worked in FHI 360, supporting initiative that promoted gender equality, addressed gender-based violence, institution, and workplace advocate for the rights of LGBTQI. She's joined by her company CEO, Nick Spencer, who is going to answer some of the questions you may have on the operations on IBIS Rise. Now we have Alp Aksoy. He is the Vice President of Diversey, a Solenis company where he leads strategic partnerships and enterprise solution across Middle East and Asia, Africa. Alp has over 30 years of international experience across various sectors, hospitality and sustainability. He is a true believer that any sustainable business must be rooted in efficiency, quality, and respect for the environment, for energy, and for the people who make progress possible. He has worked across in almost every continent. Now he's based in Dubai. He continues to advocate for partnerships that deliver inclusive growth and enduring impact. He is joined by Izabela Ersahin. She's the Executive Director of Sustainable Journey, who is executing partner of Diversey, a Solenis company, on the project that they will talk about. Sustainable Journey is a nonprofit that empowers women producer groups and fosters inclusive supply chain through fair trade and circular economy practices. The initiative is supported by UN Women, and they've been working to advance gender responsive procurement and women's economic empowerment across the region. Next, we have, not least, we have Lais Fernanda Souza. She's the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Manager at Accor. Lais is a social scientist, and she has specialization on operations and administration, social project management, diversity and social inclusion, and human rights. She's the DEI manager at Accor, working with affinity groups and diversity committees, driving the DEI strategy for the Americas perimeter. So now I'll hand over the floor to Nim first to kick us off. So Nim, over to you.
Yes, thank you so much, Miwa, for having me here today, and to all of you for joining this really important discussion. And as Miwa shared, I'll be speaking today about the business case for private sector investment in women's economic empowerment. And if we can go to the next slide. To begin, I'd like to start with what I think is common ground for those of us in the room today. I suspect that most of us today believe a few things. First, that there is an ethical impairment for investment in poverty alleviation. Second, that good jobs can transform the lives of women living in poverty. And lastly, that private sector commitment is really needed to advance progress on social goals, right? I think those things are fairly uncontroversial in the audience today. But if we go to the next slide, despite this common ground and agreement, which I think exists, it often bumps up against a hard reality. And I'm sure many of you experience this in your work, which is that the ethical arguments just don't really convince private sector to alter the status quo, right? There is a very different decision-making calculus that often happens within private sector firms with the profit motive. That doesn't mean that they're bad or unethical, but it's more that the decision-making is driven by other calculations. And really getting firms to invest meaningfully in the needs of low-wage workers, it's possible, but it just requires a slightly different playbook. And so today, I'd like to talk a little bit more about the organization that I lead, Good Business Lab, and more importantly, share a bit about our experience, both developing and socializing the business case that really might get them to invest in attracting and retaining more women workers. And I truly think, despite this, this difference in arguments, there's really still reason to be optimistic about how we can get private sector firms to more meaningfully power progress on these social development goals. So we go to the next slide. GBL was founded nearly a decade ago by two economists based in the US, together with a manufacturing leader at a garment firm in India, to uncover answers about the relationships between worker well-being and business performance. And what our work has revealed across continents and sectors is that when firms invest in job amenities, things like mental health support, financial inclusion, skilling and career advancement, grievance redressal, things that really matter to workers in their lives, it's not just the workers that benefit. Yes, workers thrive when they have these amenities and investments, but also they become more valuable workers for their employees. And I'm going to share a few insights from recent work that kind of bring this intersection to life. But before I do, a lot of this goes into thinking about the needs on both sides of this equation, right? What do really workers need and what do their lives look like, particularly women workers who tend to be more ignored by a lot of these social investments? And what does it take for them to thrive? And on the other hand, what do businesses care about most deeply when it comes to running successful organizations, right? And so things like attendance, retention, productivity, these are the criteria that they most often use to drive their investment decisions. So wherever we can find common ground and overlap, that's where it's possible to make a really strong business case. And I think that intersection point is actually quite large as our evidence continues to confirm. So if we go to the next slide, I'd like to talk a little bit about one of our programs at GBL, where we're working with 9 of India's largest auto manufacturers to help improve the really low rates of women's labor participation in the sector. And so the sector is growing, wages are competitive with similar types of work, yet only 5.6% of the workforce is made up by women, when there's no real reason for that gender dynamic other than many other barriers that prevent their ability to joining the workforce and thriving in that workforce. So our program is asking this question of how can we make a business case for firms to grow the ranks of their women workers? And so if we continue, there are plenty of executive commitments to grow the ranks of women workers, right? But the status quo of what actually happens on the ground makes progress a little hard and in some cases unlikely. And so what our research has shown in spending time with both prospective women workers, current women workers, as well as hiring managers, is that the hiring agencies rarely include women in their outreach unless they're specifically instructed to do so. When they do so, they do apply just the same tactics that work for men workers, which is just knocking on doors and looking for able-bodied workers. And then thirdly, the amenities that women tend to prioritize, like safety, transportation to work, and the ability to work with other women, aren't really communicated to women during the recruitment process, which reinforces stereotypes about, this is man's work and prevents them from actually participating in this very sort of positive opportunity for economic advancement. And so the result is, because firms are not targeting women in the right ways, they're not actually making work for women, the cost to recruit and retain women is actually inflated because there's not really that gender lens that's going into changing how firms are doing these hiring. And what we know is when women workers are perceived as being more expensive to hire and retain, firms aren't really that willing to authorize the extra expense, no matter the impact on the equity goals that might come out of the boardroom. And so thinking about sort of what the business case for this is looking like, our early findings from the research and engagement has shown that beyond those equity targets that are set by executives, the things that really keep business operators up at night are really three questions that I mentioned before. How much does it cost for me to hire women workers? What does my attrition rate of workers generally look like? And what that is very deeply tied to my ability to my production capacity, as well as the replacement cost of maintaining that production capacity. And then lastly, of course, how productive are the workers that I hire? And what our work has shown is that gender-informed investments really do move the needle on all three of these concerns. And the pitch, I'm not going to get into all of the data today, but the pitch is really that firstly, if you recognize that recruitment truly needs a gender lens, you'll actually reduce your hiring costs, which today are too high to justify. But if you actually make adjustments and think about the gendered components, you can actually save money on recruitment. Second, if you invest in workplace amenities, and sometimes these are fairly low-cost investments that make women actually want to join work, you'll actually retain women workers. And in manufacturing work, as many of us know, attrition is a huge problem. The churn can be really great on a month-to-month basis. So making low-cost investment actually improves retention by even a month. That is real savings in the bank. And then lastly, there are strong links between workplace conditions and productivity. So things like having grievance redressal systems and other things that make that work environment better actually result in higher productivity workers, right? So all these things there are ways to actually increase the ROI of these investments, but a lot of it comes into communicating that ROI case rather than just the ethical argument, which I believe but may not actually move action. And we are currently conducting a randomized control trial to really get deeper into what are those relationships between specific investments and the impacts on recruitment costs and conversion, retention, and overall productivity. Moving to another example comes from the Indian garment sector where we do a lot of work. And it's very common for low-wage garment workers, most of them who are women, to struggle to make ends meet. And so when they face unexpected expenses, they often have to cut back on essentials, eat into savings, and often turn to expensive debt, which takes a real toll on both their household stability and their individual mental health. And so we asked, what role can the private sector play in solving this problem? How can we make a business case for them to really think about improving household financial stability beyond just, playing with the wage? And so if we go to the next slide, a bit more context, right? So most garment workers are paid monthly, at least in India. And firms are a little wary, honestly, of giving advances on that paycheck, because they worry that if they give an advance, workers might take that money and run and not show up the next day. And with high attrition rates, being common, the monthly payday often turns into a little bit of a leverage to extend tenure, regardless of whether that's the right thing to do. It is what happens oftentimes in practice. And so we wanted to test ways to really improve liquidity. And so we introduced a salary on-demand solution wherein workers were able to withdraw wages they'd already earned in advance of payday. And so we deployed this solution and conducted a trial, and we found that when workers had access to early access to their wages, it had incredible effects on a number of metrics. They actually reduced their reliance on expensive debt by 30%. They showed up and actually were 7% more productive and 21% less likely to quit. And for those of you who work in the space, those are really hard numbers for interventions to cause, right? Productivity gains are really hard to come by. Retention is really hard because attrition rates tend to be very high. So for us, the magnitude of these effects was really unexpected. But also so was the response from firms, right? So when we piloted the tool, they were really worried about the impacts this might have. And they said, once you're done with the pilot, we have to get rid of it immediately because we don't want this to disrupt our work. And so at the end of the trial, when we went back and showed the results, we said, okay, we're getting ready to take away this pilot. They were like, wait, this is actually having real impact in our workforce. We see the value of this, we see the results, and our workers love this as well. And so please don't take this away. We actually want to scale this across all of our factories, right? So, seeing that evidence and experiencing that evidence, I think has had a tremendous effect in successfully making a business case for investing in things that kind of go beyond the typical things that employers tend to provide their low-wage worker populations. And we have more examples of these kinds of things that I have time, but I think I'll end on the next slide with 3 lessons that we've learned for how to effectively really wield this business case with the private sector. First is that administrative data, good data, is really essential. It sounds like an obvious point, right? But having high quality data on business operations, not just things like utilization and pre and post satisfaction, is really needed to both effectively estimate ROI, but also have firms believe that this is drawing from real operational data, not just utilization data. They need to see that tied to their own data or to data from a firm that is like them enough for them to believe it. The second point is that a lot of our work starts as academic work, right? Because we have econ PhDs and a lot of qualitative and quantitative researchers on our team, and it pains them, but academic rigor doesn't really matter all that much to the private sector, right? They don't care too much about randomized controlled trial design and methodology. They care about on-ground action. And so pilots, which can generate more directional insights, are a lot of what private sector actors want to see. What's the low-cost way for us to test this? Yes, once we have rigorous evidence, that's really important, I think, to move forward as a sector to say, we have good data on this. But in order to gain traction with firms, they really need to see the pilot rather than the 18-month RCT, which they don't really have the patience for. And then lastly is that social investments are actually an experience good, right? The business case even isn't enough. Firms really need, for them to believe that this has value, they need to experience it. And so even if firms are highly profitable, they have cash, certainly more cash than cash-strapped grassroots organizations often have. They're unlikely to actually invest in large amounts until they experience this, in some cases for free. And so what we've experienced is having public sector dollars, either from philanthropy or from the government, is sometimes necessary to subsidize the early interventions so that over time firms can say, oh yes, I've experienced this, I'm seeing the impact, and now I'm willing to invest more significantly in this on my own, right? So 3 kind of lessons that we've seen, from our work in the garment sector in India, the auto sector in India, and as well as Latin America and the United States, and retail and food services and a few other industries. There's been a lot of this continuity about both how do you develop a business case and then how do you sell it to generate action. So I think with that, my time is up, but happy to answer questions at the end of this webinar and go deeper wherever you'd like.
No, that's amazing. Thank you so much, Nim, and thanks so much for joining this amazing business cases. So now we will invite web signatories to hear from real life examples. So I'd like to invite Kim Heang and Nick to the floor. So over to you.
Okay. Yep. Thank you. Hello, everyone. It's our pleasure to be part of these webinars and sharing our business experience in reducing the rural poverty and empowering women through the sustainable agriculture in Cambodia. Yep. So please allow me to introduce who we are. In 2008, Wildlife Conservation Society, WCS, initiated IBIS right projects, working with just only 264 farmers. And the projects aim to incentivize local community to protect wildlife and forests, whilst improving livelihoods through the purchase of organic paddies at premium prices. In 2017, we transitioned to a social enterprise known as IBIS Right Conservation Company. And now we have expanded our operations and positively impacts over 2,400 of farmers. And among those, approximately 40% are women. Our business mission is to transform the food systems and restore nature by engaging local communities, especially women farmers and marginalized groups, to promote agricultural practice that are both environmentally sustainable and beneficial to the wildlife ecosystems, whilst strengthening the rural livelihoods, nutrition, and well-being. Yep. So where we work in Cambodia. Here is where we operate in the northern plains of Cambodia, which is the region rich in forests and wetlands, among the most biodiversity ecosystem in Southeast Asia. And importantly, that area is home to over 50 threatened and endangered species, including giant ibis, Asian elephants, and goat. This area also known for the long-lasting traditions of our of the farming jasmine rice, which is our main products. Yeah. And in the facts of widespreading threat to the forest and wildlife, rural poverty, and limited access to markets among those communities, these reasons motivated us to develop a conservation-linked business model that connects the livelihood to the environmental protections. Yes, just to show you the pictures of the giant ibis, which is our national bird, and also representing our company name. Yep. So what is our business models in promoting women empowerment and our business operations? So we work closely with the community-based forest protections, and we support both biodiversity conservation and rural economic developments with a strong focus on women empowerment. We engage women as leaders in the conservation efforts and ensure equitable participations and benefit sharings in our value chain. Along the way, we also work with the rural communities and farmers who committed to protecting wildlife, forests, and have high commitment to adopting the organic farming practices that meets IBIS rice standard. So what are the IBIS rice standards? We focus on three main components. The first one is organic farming that's aligned with the USDA's and EU standards. Second is zero deforestation, and the third one is the zero poaching. And the second business model that we focus on the technical training to our target farmers by leveraging skills and of women and men's farmers. We offering different agricultural trainings, including the climate resilience that's improving the agricultural productivities. And the last one is the support and investments in the farming community. We purchase the organic and wildlife-friendly rice at the premiums up to 70% higher than the local market price. Yes, beyond offering the premiums price, we also providing pre-financings and the funding support for planting and harvesting for our farmer. Yep. So why is the women empowerment matters to our company? Based on our experience, observations working with the community members, we found that empowering women still challenging in that context. And comparing to men, we found out that the women in the community still face a number of disadvantages, including less mobility, lower literacy rates, less access to the market information, less access to the training opportunities, lack of financial capacities, and facing the domestic violence. And amongst our farmers, 40% are women and 5% are from the women-headed household. With that kind of challenge and issues that motivates and influence how we operate our business, we integrate the women empowerment principles as a socially purposeful business to try change within the IBIS workplace, marketplace, and our communities. We apply the 7 WEP throughout our value chain that guide us to develop a long-term business model that aim to impact not just only our socials and capital, but also contributing to eliminating poverty, violence against women in the communities, and also strengthening the women economic dependence and fostering the women's leaderships. We support and engage, empowers women in our producer groups and promote them to be taking the roles in the governance, to take the governance roles in their committees. And alongside, we also reinforce support for women's confidence, leaderships, and negotiations. So how can we create impacts as a buyers and the company? As aforementioned, we purchased the organics and wildlife friendly rice at the premiums up to 70% higher than the local market's price. And over the past 5 years, we have invested approximately 2.3 million in the conservation premiums paid to our farmer. And those include the compliance incentive. And beyond that, we also offering the other support, including dry season support fund, offering free seeds at use, provide pre-financings for planting and harvesting. That these supports enables our poor and small-scale farmer to carry out their farming activity. And importantly, offering the premium price, contributing to increase the household income and support the women's financial dependence. In terms of the community engagements, we established the IBIS right user group and who plays the important roles in organizing the organic producers member to become the eligible for the organic certifications. And that producer groups also provide their technical support to their farmers members to practice and help improve yields, build connections with the buyers, coordinate joint sales to secure the better price. And alongside, we also promoting the women to take the leadership roles in that committee, and we providing different trainings to strengthen their governance and the financial management. Those training includes the internal control system, bookkeeping, digital financial management, and planning. As a result, we could see that the women have capacity to lead the inspections within their community farmers, their farmer member, and they have skill and capable to coordinate the external audit process, coordinate the payment to farmers and the other activity in their communities. In terms of the technical trainings, we offering the organic farming techniques, climate change resilience, resulting in 35% yields improvements on the breaks comparing to the control group. So at the same time, we encouraging our farmer to apply the crop diversification to that diversifies the income sources and the soil improvement. Yep. So in conclusions, we have been scaling up our business from just working with very small farmers, and now we're growing up to more than 2,500, and through applying the women empowerment principles across our value chains. And we plan to reach more farmers in the next 5 years, which is around 5,000 farmers, especially strengthening our social impact through our business operations. That is reasons why we asked the WEP signatory in Cambodia, and we also plan to be the first cohort of the Women Empowerment Principle corporate action in Cambodia. Yeah, this is how we contribute to lifting the rural communities out of the poverty and empowering women through our business operation and support. Yeah, thank you.
No, thank you so much, Kim Eng, for your presentation. And I see some comments, some questions are coming up already, but please wait until the Q&A session to be answered. But this is a kind reminder for the audience. If you have any questions, please do ask them through the Q&A function so they could be picked up when we are going on to the Q&A section. So with that said, I would like to invite Alp and Izabela from Diversey and Solenis Company and Sustainable Journey. So Alp, over to you.
Hi, good morning, good afternoon. It's already very exciting to be sharing the screen with so many inspiring stories and projects. We are going to be Alp and Izabela. We represent the Diversey company, which is a part of Solenis, and the Sustainable Journey, which is our execution partner for the project Linens for Life. And we want to tell you about this multifaceted project. And I think there is an animation that will make it easier for me to be able to pass the message.
Discarded linens that have completed their life cycle generate a considerable amount of waste for hotels. At this point, Diversey springs into action, introducing Linens for Life, giving a second life to discarded linens and towels. Linens for Life has a simple yet powerful goal: to support women's economic empowerment, creating a circular economic model. By upcycling discarded linens, we create a source of income for women and a sustainable, quality supply of our partnering hotels. What do? We collect linens and towels that have completed their life cycle from our hotel partners. Then, we share these with social women organizations that coordinate underserved women in the region. By giving second life to linens, these efforts create new opportunities for women. Linens for Life started in Turkey at 3 different locations and now expanding through the Middle East and Africa. With this amazing initiative, dozens of new products are upcycled to be used again in hotels and served to their guests. Thanks to our hotel partners and global and local supporters, ever since its launch, we have achieved creating a positive impact and embracing the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. So far, around 100 women have gained economic independence thanks to this program. Our short-term goal is to support 2,000 more women in building their own financial strength. Linens for Life by Diversey. Join us in this sustainable journey.
Thank you very much, Viva. So we are Diversey, a part of Solenis, and it's a company that is all about hygiene. So if you are staying in a hotel or eating in a restaurant, the chances that you are actually sleeping in a bed that has been cleaned with Diversey products, or ate on a dish cleaned with Diversey products, it's a huge possibility. We work with the big names like the Hiltons and Accors of this world as hotel partners. And we try to make sure that their guest satisfactions are at par and their brands are protected. And within that, of course, let's go to the next slide. Within that, of course, the relationship with the hotels is extremely integral. So we live with them, we train their teams, we are a part of their operation. And because of this, we are able to be making projects as such. Our brand vision is about building a safer and healthier world, and sustainability is in the core of whatever we do. Let me go to the next slide. We have similar projects to Linens for Life. There is one called Soap for Hope, coffee bricks, and plastic shreds are coming as well. So again, it's all about protecting the environment or making the smart decisions for a more sustainable future. Let's move ahead. And this is, again, back to Linens for Life. It's actually a quite simple process, in the sense we make sure that the discarded linen from the hotels go and meet workshops that they can be upcycled into different products. So linen go from the hotels into the workshops managed by women, run by women, and from there, whatever product is created goes back to the hotels and they're purchased for them. So it creates this cycle that goes on sustainably on, and everybody within that cycle actually is supposed to be empowered and their lives is bettered. Let's move ahead. It's a multifaceted project. We are talking about empowering women. It actually hits 17 of the SDG goals, 9 of them directly, 8 of them indirectly. Surely a very obvious benefit is the waste management part of the whole thing. The linen that would have been thrown away, creating carbon emissions, actually are used for another purpose through circular economy. And surely using this waste and having these discussions, as in webinars like this, we are creating awareness, while we are also working with UN Women with their WEPs initiative to make sure women empowerment is more discussed in the hospitality sector as well. Let's move ahead. Well, Diversey is a global company, so wherever there is a hotel, you are going to expect that we are in that country, and we are. This project we are right now piloting in Turkey, but it's already going into the North African countries. The plan is to be able to launch it in Middle East and Africa within next year fully, and then we intend to go beyond those areas as our execution partner actually finds these places and the partners that we can work together with. Let's move. Yeah. Surely it's a project that becomes very emotional from time to time. I think we have a testimonial from a lady who actually works in one of our workshops here.
Kendi kazancım oldu. Yani çocuklarımın istediklerini daha rahatlıkla alabiliyorum. Yani eşimden yani ne kadar da olsa para istemiyorum. Kendi harçlığımı kendim çıkartıyorum. Kendi ayaklarımın üstünde duruyorum. Hani ne kadar yüksek bir miktar olmasa da kazandığımız. Şimdi bundan sonra kendi ayaklarımın üzerinde duruyorum. Çocuklarıma destek oluyorum. Kızımın çeyizine, ona destek oluyorum. Başkasına ihtiyacın olmadan yapabilmek, sormadan yapabilmek çok güzel. Manevi olarak stresten uzaklaşıyorsunuz. İnsan boş kaldığı zaman kafasında bir şeyleri kuruyor sürekli. Mesela onlardan uzaksınız.
Thank you very much. One of the important parts of this project, I believe, is about the private sector inclusion into the whole thing. Now, a lot of companies, they try to do good for the world, and there are certain points that these sustainability projects are run for a couple of years, and then somehow, because other things come priorities, they actually falter away, they evaporate. At Diversey, we believe in sustainability, let's put it that way. And what we tried to do, finding an NGO, an execution partner, we wanted to make sure that Linens for Life, even though we might falter, hopefully we will never, but if we choose to prioritize other projects and not be a part of this, we want Linens for Life to be standing on its own as a sustainable project to deliver for the women, hopefully for a very, very long time. And to enable that, we have Sustainable Journey. Izabela, I hope she's here to take over and
Yes.
tell you about, as she runs the workshops and organizes the women to deliver the results out of this project, is our main partner. Izabela?
Thank you very much, Alp. I am Izabela Ersahin. I am the Executive Director of Sustainable Journey, which is a non-for-profit organization committed to building inclusive, circular supply chain that work for women, communities, and the planet. So our mission is to make the work of small women producer groups visible, valued, and economically viable. As Alp said it, this is not a one-time shot. This is something which is continuing, which is growing, and it's an ecosystem which is surviving by itself, actually. We rewrite how value chains function by centering our work around dignified livelihoods, fair living wages, and climate conscious productions. The images you see on the screen are some of the images of how this work is happening in our workshop. Linens for Life, the program, is actually a perfect demonstration of what this system can look like. What our mission is to be when it's accomplished, by transforming discarded hotel linens into high quality, marketable, and desirable products crafted by those small women producer groups. We do more than reducing waste. We create actually a resilient local economy and restore dignity through work. This model is, of course, grounded in the fair trade principles, like long-term partnership, fair compensation, safe working conditions, and this deep respect for both people and the planet. Each item which is produced is not just a circular product, it's a symbol of social equity. As for our hotel partners, it isn't just a CSR program. Its impact embedded directly into procurement, actually. As Alp very well explained it, the discarded linens are taken, transformed into produce beautiful products, and then sold back to those same hotels who discarded them in the first place. So we go directly into their procurement system. So it's a practical and scalable way to align operations with sustainability goals, gender equity commitment, and the expectations of today's more and more, hopefully, conscious consumers. Together with Diversey, a Solenis company, we are proving that procurement can be a powerful force for good, creating products with purpose and supply chains that heal rather than harm. I want to applaud the company. Diversey is not only making this program possible, they're also championing the vision behind it by shifting their own purchasing practices. So today, from Turkey to across all the MENA region, Diversey is already sourcing its corporate and promotional gifts directly from our women producer groups, paving the way and showing the light that this kind of procurement is possible, it's valuable, and it has a lot of impact. Thank you very much. Here we have maybe I will continue here. We have just a few numbers to show you. This is just a small example of what happened with one single hotel in Turkey when we started this program while testing it here in Turkey in the ground. So 0.5 ton of used linens were saved from the trash, basically. Those usually in Turkey, when they're discarded, they're being burned. 35 women artisan produced some beautiful goods those hotels bought back. Over almost 5,000 living wage were provided directly to those women producers. We created 44,000 products which those hotels used. The 500,000 Turkish lira went directly to the pocket of the women, and there were 10 tons of CO2 which were saved from the environment. Again, this is one hotel in Turkey, one order. So this is a little bit of the impact. You can picture a little bit more with numbers. So now imagine doing that across the whole region, with hopefully more and more of the hotel partners working with the Diversey company. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Alp and Izabela. Indeed, that video was very touching from the testimony, and I think a lot of audience are putting that in the chat. Thank you so much for sharing that. So last but not least, I'm going to invite Lais, Fernanda, for her project in Brazil. So Lais, over to you.
Thank you, Miwa. Hello, everyone. Thank you, Anna, too, for the invitation and for the opportunity to present our project for refugees inclusion. I'm based in Brazil, and this project I will present for you takes place here too. So the next, please. I will start introducing Accor. We are a French hotel company, and we are present in more than 100 countries. And I work in Americas region. Next, please. So in Americas, the slide is not well configured, but the important information is regarding the countries. We are present in several countries in Americas, and the largest operation is concentrated here in Brazil. So I will share our action in this country. Next, please. D&I is part of our strategy in Accor. We work with 4 pillars: gender equality, LGBT+, people with disabilities, and the pillar social, ethnic, racial, and cultural diversity. So when we talk about hospitality, we are talking about people. And to guarantee this real inclusion in our space for hosts, for our people, is crucial, and direct our action, and is super connected with our purpose, because our purpose say we are pioneers in the art of responsible hospitality, connecting cultures with heartfelt care. So we do that in everything in this project. Is one more example of these actions. Next, please. So we started to work in this topic for refugees and migrants inclusion since 2022. We signed commitments for the UNHCR and UN Women here in Brazil to connect our job opportunities with these groups. Because to offer the job opportunities is crucial to them to restart, to rebuild their lives in the countries, in this case in Brazil. And when we talk about to offer job opportunities for these groups, we are talking about a role that the private sector is well positioned to fulfill. So we started to work in this topic. Next, please. And the first step was to prepare our leaders, and we did that with the support, again, with the UNHCR and UN Women here in Brazil. And we focus a lot in raising the awareness about the additional barriers that refugee women live to restart their lives in the countries, because of lots of intersectional impacts. So we focus too in this topic because it's super connected with our D&I strategy too for the gender pillar, and connecting all the topics, and looking for the completion of people and representation of women. Next, please. So we created a training module with the support of our hotels. So we present the hospitality industry. We talk about the largest sectors, the housekeeping, the food and beverage. So we talk about the daily routines, our leaders presenting, and we talk and present the labor laws in Brazil to guarantee the people have all the right information. And after this experience, we offer a certification of presence in this activity and invite them to participate in an interview for a real opportunity in our hotels. Next, please. And last year, as an amplification of our actions, we established a partnership with a hospitality school to offer, in this case, professional trainings in hospitality industry with official certification. And it's super important to support these women, because with the certification it's possible to look for a position in the services sector, and impacts a lot their opportunities for job positions, and is connected with the amplification of our commitments into 2023. We pledged with the Global Refugees Forum to training 600 of refugees, and hiring 208 refugees until December to 2027. So these actions still focus in our plan, and we now offering the certifications impact their lives to start working for hotels or other sectors of services. Next, please. So I want to share a short video from employees from this project. please.
Eu sou angolana. Eu sempre fui apaixonada por Brasil.
Meu nome é Manu, eu sou do Haiti e eu tô aqui no Brasil há 6 anos.
Mas a minha vida toda está em Angola, né? Lá tenho casas, a minha vida toda tá em Angola. Só que as dificuldades fazem com que eu esteja aqui.
O projeto então nasceu de um treinamento muito rápido, completa agora 1 ano e meio já de turmas, e a gente chegou na 10ª turma, mais de 100 pessoas treinadas, quase 40 pessoas já contratadas, e tanto aqui no Pérgamo Frecaneca como em outros hotéis.
Para a Accor, promover projetos que proporcionem a inclusão de grupos vulnerabilizados é uma prioridade. Nós temos compromissos com a diversidade, inclusão e reforçamos a equidade, garantindo oportunidades de desenvolvimento justas e equitativas para todos.
Obrigada por tudo. Obrigada, Brasil.
Merci pour tout. Je suis très fière de travailler na Accor. Merci pour tout.
Next, please, Miwa. So the testimonials are 2 examples, but we fortunately have lots of examples here, more 2 pictures for other hotels. And we are now having the presence of the most part of migrants and refugees are from Venezuelan, Haiti, and Angola. But we connect our opportunities with the groups that UN and UNHCR connecting with our project always. Next, please. So we are delighted to celebrate the training. Since we beginning the project, we could training more than 218 refugees. The most part are women, and we could hire 2 plus than 350 refugees, and again the most parts are women, because our project focus on this intersectionality, because we know the importance, and is again connected with our directions for strategy for gender equality and everything we do in Accor. So thank you, and I am here available for the Q&A section too.
Great. Thank you so much. Now I'd like to invite all the speakers to join Anna for the Q&A session. And I see still a lot of questions in the chat. So please, if you have any questions, please to share them on the Q&A function. But Anna, over to you. And
yeah, thank you, Miwa. And didn't I say in the beginning of this webinar that we have amazing speakers? I've seen all the reactions, very positive reactions in the chat, congratulating everyone for great job. We also have a lot of questions. I think we have about 10 questions that we'll take now. And then we'll see if we get to a second round, depending on how much time we get to answer these questions. But there's a lot of interest in your initiatives, in your project, in your work in Africa. Is there any, Alp, you were mentioning that you were expanding into Africa, but are there others that are doing the same? If you have any insights that you can share. There's also a question, a broader question actually, when women go to work, who takes care of the household chores and all the care burden, as it was referenced in the question, who takes care of that work? If you have any insights on the women that you have recruited, how they are dealing with this other functions that they have. Diversey, there was a specific question about who pays for the transport of the linen. Is it the hotel? Is it the cooperative? Is it you? Who pays for that? Just to kind of have a full understanding of the project. And have you encountered any hotels that are not open to work with you on this initiative? And if so, it may be also a little bit about if all of you can cover a little bit on some of the challenges that you had and how you overcame those. And IBIS Rise, if you have, how do you ensure return on investment if you're paying the women a premium? So how are you doing the financing there? And there's also kind of a deeper question, a little bit about many of you are working with rural women, where there is traditional beliefs and traditions and cultural norms. How have you, and if you have any experience building on the confidence of women to actually engage in this work and be involved, where there might have been some resistance in the beginning? And then there is also one participant that has access to a lot of secondhand clothing. So any ideas of upcycling and how similar to what you are doing in Diversey, the Linen for Life, but other ideas for how you can take a product and turn it into something else like you've been doing in the project. So those are the initial questions. So I'd like to take a round for all of you, and I see Alp in the first corner, so I'm going to ask you to start, but we'll let everyone respond one by one to the questions that you find relevant to your initiative.
Sure.
So Alp, over to you.
Let me quickly run by them. I think the first question was about the countries and where the coverage would be about. We are launching in Turkey right now, but in the past, our project in a different capacity is already available in Asia Pac countries. What we are trying to do, we're trying to make this project sustainable, as said. That's why we have an NGO. There are a lot of different ways of managing discarded linen coming from the hotels, but unless you make them into something meaningful and with a critical mass, it's very hard to actually promote it to the buyers. Please don't forget, one part of this project is the waste management. So you take the waste and you create something new out of them, but those needs to be sold. Unless they are sold, the circular economy is not completed and the women are not empowered and they're not taken through the poverty into having a better life. So for that, the concept should be easy enough for a hotel to understand and pass all their very rigid procurement processes as well. So that's what we're trying to do, creating a very solid structure with sustainable journey, and make sure that it sustains on its own. So basically, that's how it works. I believe the moment we have certain examples that the cycle actually works in certain countries that we are going for, and our priorities right now are Turkey, UAE, Morocco, Egypt, and Saudi. We will be going for different countries as well. And of course, these all require resource, and hopefully we'll be able to get there. We are getting good support and guidance from UN Women at this point in time, from Arab nations as well, and also the Turkish team. So it actually encourages us to make it work. Coming to the question about how the transfer to this very moment, it's very, even the Diversey employees who actually serve the hotels, they actually get these products and put them into their cars and drive them to wherever they're supposed to go. So again, we want this project to stand on its own, but until it can stand on its own, it's still at a baby stage. Until it can stand on its own, everybody at Diversey and also in Sustainable Journey, they're working as beautiful human beings, and they're doing their best for this project to add value to others. That's how it works. Today, everything's done with a good heart, people carrying stuff all around themselves. But tomorrow, we do look forward to having a decent supply chain around the whole thing. I think, yeah, and yeah, the question about the kids. I think Izabela should answer that question, but I do want to make a remark. I know it's very natural for us, but when we are talking about empowering women with giving them work, the very first question in the natural mind is who takes care of the women? Who takes care of the babies? Who takes care of the kids? I am guessing the crowd in this meeting should be in a position in this current environment to say it's not the women's job necessarily to take care of the women, it's also a man's job. So we don't ask the same question to men. Does it make sense for us to ask the question? I understand why we ask it, but maybe we should evolve to a different mindset soon enough. But Izabela would probably have the answer to that question anyway.
Thank you, Alp, for pointing out the role of men as well in taking over those household chores. Thank you.
Yes,
Izabela.
for the time being, this is also the beauty of working with what we call those small women producer groups. Those are not factory settings. Those are usually small workshops, women cooperatives, which are usually child-friendly. So, for example, the place I'm sitting here today in Istanbul, we have a small area for the women to bring their kids along where they're safe, they have a space to play, and they can be taken care of. So the women would relay themselves to watch the children if needed. We also put a tremendous value into adapting flexible schedules so that those women can balance a little bit their chores at home, the elderly care, the child care, etc., etc. So we make those flexible as much as possible. Again, working with those small groups of women which are organized into, social businesses or cooperatives, or even with NGOs as small workshop, there is always that flexibility and that possibility to make it easy for them. So I hope that answers your question. I would like to add a few things on top of what Alp said. Those hotels are spending a lot of money on what we call those dry amenity products. So laundry bags, slippers, all the small little things you can find in a hotel room. So what we're trying to do, and this is also one of the challenges, and I want to share that with you, is to tell them, hey, drop your regular supplier who is purchasing from overseas, who cannot tell you how those products were made, by who and in which conditions. Give us your waste material and we will make it into a beautiful product you will be buying back. So who is paying for the initiative is actually those hotels. We are trying to swap products they're already buying by products with impact, with the same quality, made locally if possible. The logistics, so Alp, I believe, was very, Diversey should take proud of their actions. So we try to the logistic part of this kind of an operation is always the most difficult part we can face in this kind of, managing tons and tons of materials. Just to give you an idea, a 200-room hotel discards about 1.5 tons of linens every single year. So we're talking about huge quantities. But the advantage of having a partner and a supporter like Diversey is that the products delivered to the hotel, the cars of Diversey are going every week to those hotels. So they're going to deliver their chemical products and they're coming back empty. While they're coming back empty, they're able to charge in their cars those linens and kind of help us on that most difficult piece, and actually a very costly piece in that kind of operation, which is the logistics. Of course, in the future, everybody's doing it with their good hearts and their goodwill. So those salespeople who are selling the products are also, the carriers and the people dealing with those linens. And we thank them very much. We value them for the work that they're doing. But at the end of the day, there is an economic incentive. There is a product, there is a buyback, and there is a money circulation which will bring enough funds when the operation scales to get a separate paid by itself, paid by the product price logistics. One more piece, because people are going to be, I think, very curious. One of our rules is that at least 40% of each product price goes directly to the pocket of the women sitting at the machine. That's why we are a non-for-profit organization. You know, nobody is getting rich out of it. The money, most of the money earned is divided into the payment to the women and then financing its operations so that it can stand on itself alone and being sustainable. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Izabela and Alp. We'll move over to, who do we have next on the screen? Fernanda. And there's also another question that's specifically for you on how did it start? You talked a little bit about your D&I policy in the company, but how did it all come about, this project to recruit refugees?
Okay. Yes, it's connected with our strategy, our purpose, and we have a pillar that I mentioned that talk about social, ethnic, and racial diversity. So we have partnerships with Global Compact and UNHCR. So it's a topic that we always look at for, but here in Brazil, specifically in 2018, the number of Venezuelans coming from Brazil started to increase. And we developed an initial project, but because of the pandemic period for hotels was really hard to start new projects in this time. So we stopped it, but in 2022 we connected again, amplifying and put this focus with UN Women for the specific barriers for women. Our project is not exclusively, but have the most representation of women, and we focus in this topic because all pillars driver that sector has the opportunity to connect our more staff positions with people that don't have experience, previous experience or high education, and how to prove this, for example, graduation, and it's more easy to connect the, for example, with people that are rebuilding their lives. So we think to us is a possibility to connect, and we benefit for this project too, because people takes a great job with us. They have gratitude for the opportunity, and it's nice for our teams too, because of the cultural integration, and that was our direction, and we're still doing and reinforcing with the global commitments.
Thank you. Thank you so much for elaborating on that. Next, I have Nick on my screen.
Hello. Good evening.
Good evening.
So shall I plow into answering the questions that you delivered earlier?
Yes, please.
Perfect. Well, yeah, I'd like to thank my colleague Kim Heang for making the presentation earlier. You know, her recruitment into the company for us is a really important step forward in delivering on the principles for IBIS rice and our farmers. She joined us just in the beginning of this month to really embed these strategies into the supply chains that we are designing and building, and the ongoing decisions that we make, throughout the year around how we invest through those supply chains in our producer groups, in our farmers, and within our company itself. One of the questions was about, return on investment in making these premium payments to all our farmers, but particularly women. We essentially do that by shortening the value chain. So traditional rice value chains have middlemen, processors, exporters, packers, and distributors. We essentially do everything from recruiting and training a farmer, supplying the seed, supporting the certification, purchase of raw materials, processing, packing to our own brand, and then marketing those products in international markets. What we then do is, as a social enterprise, reinvest that more efficient value chain or the higher attainment of value back in the mission, back in the farming model. And we're in business to protect forest and empower farmers to protect their forest and empower women to develop and improve their standing and their livelihoods. I guess we are setting up that value chain such that it is sustainable, financially resilient is a huge challenge. However, now we have that value chain and we have these producer groups. We've been working with some of these communities for 10 years. We have amazing infrastructure to extend training, investments, ongoing engagement with these farmers and with these producer groups. And one of the key challenges to keeping women in these positions within these producer groups, whether it be an inspector, whether it be an agronomist, is retainment. And I think that's been a theme, is the pressures on women to prioritize household labor is one of the cultural issues that we face, and retainment of those staff. So I think the consistent and ongoing presence to support women through flexible approaches to the roles that are available, and sort of mirroring the internal HR policies that we have at head office for our staff down through the value chain into those producer groups, is something that we've just started doing and just started looking at. And I think that will really help with the retainment of women leaders in those producer groups. As far as changing sort of the cultural norms around that, Cambodia has a huge population of the demographic is very young, and we're seeing lots of talent come through in the younger generation in Cambodia. I believe out of the 14 fully employed professional community workers and agronomy staff, 6 or 7 of them are now fully trained bachelor degree female agronomists. And having those guys out in the community working with the farmers, I think really helps make those shifts in cultural norms. I think the glue to all of this is it's taken us 10 years to set up these value chains and to build the capacity generally at the community level, to set up the community conservation models, to build a market that can sustain these investments and this level of attention. And we're going to be working with these communities for another 20 years. I think the opportunity is in that consistency, and where donor projects, which are now far less common, where they had life cycles, we've got a generation or multiple generations in these communities to work with. And really, with the women empowerment principles, that's what I'm excited about, is how much we can do because we can be consistent and have that ongoing presence. And I think that's the opportunity that's ahead of us. I think we're still early on in that journey.
Thanks for elaborating on that. That was really good. We have one speaker left. We have gone 4 minutes over time, but I'd really like, Nim, for you to also touch a little bit about some of the challenges also that you encounter. You talked very well about the business case, but any challenges that you encounter or kind of roadblocks. But also if you could give a final recommendation, and then we make one more round for everyone to just give a quick 30-second recommendation, and then we'll close. Thank you so much. Over to you, Nim.
Yeah, I'll say, this work it's easy to say we need an ROI business case. And at this point, I think we all know that it's important, right? But it's much harder to execute one. And I'd say there are two challenges. One is that there are oftentimes workplace programs and tools and interventions that exist for upper wage workers that are being commercialized, and a lot of white collar workforce development and workforce stability tools are proliferating, but very often they sort of stop at a certain wage limit, and so the economics of extending those same tools that are being deployed at scale in upper income contexts, the economics don't work when you need a lot of boots on the ground and you need that individual attention on the shop floor, which is expensive, right? And so I think there's generally a challenge with how do the things that become commonplace white collar amenities, how do those economics work for low wage context? That continues to be a challenge, and I think a need for a lot of public sector investment and subsidies really to make sure that they can get up and running, and over time maybe the profit models look differently for extending those benefits to low wage contexts. But I think more work needs to be done on how do we actually make this a reality for more people versus just looking at, venture capital spends billions of dollars on these tech innovations that only reach a portion of the workforce and leaves a lot of people behind, right? So what are those blended finance models that actually will extend it further down the wage ladder, so that more people who have more, I think, significant needs can actually experience the benefit. So that's one challenge that we continue to chip away with better evidence and better results. And the other one is just time, right? It takes, in the one large garment firm we've done a lot of our work in, it took having, a family member who is involved in the operations and decision-making of the firm and commitment from that executive level, in addition to many years of engagement on the shop floors with factory managers to really get that buy-in. I know that's time that not everyone has, but the reality is it does take years to embed this kind of mentality into decision making, because there are such ingrained norms on what good operations look like, that it's really hard to make that change. Not that it's impossible, but that's sort of the timeline horizon that I think we need to have of like how long it actually takes to adopt hiring practices, management practices to accommodate these things that aren't first nature for most organizations. But I think the recommendation from my end is, have good data, don't lose patience, and I think it does take this mentality that the private sector can be a force of change, despite its sort of just the amoral nature of capitalism, I think, is something that's not going to change. But if we can frame what we want and the ethical imperatives in terms of the language and the equations that the private sector kind of responds to, that's where there's optimism and room for improvement, I think, from my perspective.
Great, thank you. So we'll go back to Nick for a quick recommendation and then to Fernanda.
Yeah, I think to echo those sentiments on looking at that time horizon to change deeply rooted norms. When you're dealing with farming, you don't get an older industry than farming and rural communities. So whilst being ambitious and sort of as ambitious as we can with the outcomes to make sure that we are committed and consistent in those approaches is really important. Blended finance is another thing, through being a private sector partner to these communities, other philanthropic or grant-based projects can really help us accelerate either research or pilot interventions that we can then sustain or scale and deploy over long periods of time. So I think, particularly when it comes to data, research and then pilots, I think we offer a really good delivery vehicle and sort of exit strategy for those either research or grant-based pilot projects. So look to partner, and certainly I think we've built community structures and a supply chain that is really friendly to partnerships going forward. So we'll be certainly looking to partner on specific initiatives going forward. And then, bringing in and empowering a senior level experts like Heang, certainly I expect to have lasting impact right from the internal head office level through to the sustained support that we give women farmers in our supply chain.
Amazing. Fernanda.
Okay. My recommendation, if any company wants to start a project, social project, it's super important to be connected with your business. It needs to be part for your strategy, because you need to create this sustainable impact. So it needs to be an action that you do, and it's possible to replace, to inspire your sector, and to prepare the teams to guarantee the opening, the necessary information to correct to do the inclusion. But it's important to do, because as a company, we are in the communities, and we need to give back for the communities. Our impact needs to be positive, so it's important to be aware of it's happening in terms of your business and creating this action. So that is my suggestion.
Thank you. So I think I have Izabela and then Alp, and then we will close. Thank you. And thanks everyone for sticking over time.
Thank you so much for sticking a little bit longer with us. Very, very quickly, I'm gonna call out all the private sector in its general, if you allow me. I believe that the real transformation occurs when we embed impact into the operation, when we don't treat it as a side project. So impact must be built into the way the company source, and not just bolted on afterwards. Social and circular procurement shouldn't be seen as charity or one-off CSR, strategy, but seen as a core and integral part of the business. Because when companies shift even a tiny percentage of their regular purchasing into women-led fair trade suppliers, they create such a huge consistent impact and dignified work, and therefore a chain reaction of positive impact in this world. So that would be my call to the private sector in general. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Izabela. It's at the core of the women's empowerment principle. So thank you so much for that message. Alp, do you have the last recommendation?
Yeah, the pressure is on me, the last statement. Well, to tell you the truth, again, very exciting to be here, very inspiring. What I hope that especially private sector or anyone who is up for these projects actually do understand about people, planet, and prosperity. Having a balanced approach to sustainability as such actually creates stronger fundamentals for these projects and let them stay strong for longer period of times. Forgetting any one of these, and unfortunately, especially the prosperity part, sometimes pushes us for very naive and very nicely thought projects, but somehow they falter very quickly. So the balance is extremely important. I think it was said in 1979, but after 45 years, we're still trying to reach out and understanding this core message of the Brundtland Report of the United Nations and say, hey, people, planet, prosperity should be the way to go. I think our company does it quite well these days, and I hope to see that result in Women for Life in the nearest future. And thank you for all the support and the great coordination you have done for us today.
Thank you so much. And it's been so enlightening to listen to all of you. You come from it. And I think what Izabela was saying, you have really embedded this in the core of the business, which we really hope that all our web signatories will do, and not just a temporary ad hoc or fashionable CSR project. So thanks everyone for making that case. I've picked up some keywords. Data is key. Patience, we heard from Nick. but also partnerships. And we've seen in the chat, if you follow the chat, everyone is eager to partner and reach out and build on the fantastic work that you've been doing. The other one is the blended finance, to really look at different models and not necessarily the traditional models. We just had last week the Financing for Development conference in Spain. So there was also some headways made over there to explore these different forms of finance. So I would just like to thank you so much, everyone, for your amazing contribution to this discussion, for the participants, for your amazing questions, and for Miwa to having led us through this in a quite timely way. We're a little bit over time, but we also kind of envisioned that from the beginning, having so many amazing speakers at our webinar today. So the next one, Miwa, do you want to just say a word about the next webinar that we have and the theme of that? And you're all welcome to join. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you so much, Anna, and thank you everyone for joining us and again sticking to our little overtime webinar. So actually, next one is on about someone actually mentioned how are youth being engaged in this project. The next one, we're following the Beijing Plus 30 theme, speaking about engaging girls in career development in the local community. So it'll be very similar to what we discussed today, but we will invite different speakers to hear from what they have been doing to include and ensure that girls in their community are empowered and later alleviated from poverty and etc. So with that said, thank you again. I'd like to remind you that there will be an evaluation survey when you're exiting, so please fill that out. And I will actually share the registration link for next month's webinar. So in case you're interested, please do sign on, and we will see you in August. Thank you. Have a great one.